All right, so here we go. So yes, rejoice, Hytale is actually saved, and today we're celebrating by going over every single detail you need to know about this game, including, but not limited to, the following: current development and early access plans, the world zones and biomes. What about the creatures, NPCs, and factions? How about that player progression and combat system? Also, what is building like in this game? We're going over the creative play as well, and the minigames and online hub. Plus, yes, this game has full-blown modding and tools and a creative first design. And we're going to be going over the actual technology and graphics engine powering this game, because there have been some interesting evolving things going on around that. So I say we start from the very beginning here. And remember, if you are new, welcome aboard. If you want to stay in the know about all things Hytale, smack that subscribe button. Let's dive into this. Starting out first and foremost, what is Hytale exactly? So yes, Hytale is a sandbox RPG that combines an open block-based world with role-playing elements like combat, progression, and story, making it a little bit different from Minecraft. Now, the game is set on a planet called Orbis, where most of the main story and exploration actually take place. Hytale's design has three core experiences that include creative play, competitive and online minigames, and adventure on Orbis, and all intended to feel like a unified game. Now, the game also uses a block-based world similar to Minecraft, of course, but with more detailed models, animation, and RPG systems layered on top. Now, worlds are also procedurally generated, by the way, including terrain, caves, dungeons, and point of interest, so every world layout is different, making this one very replayable. Now, Hytale's visual style is deliberately bright, stylized, and voxel-based. I love it, with detailed character and creature models atop this cubic terrain. Now, you're going to be playing as an avatar, a lore-specific kind of creative being who could build worlds, contraptions, and creations. This all ties nicely into the game's narrative to its sandbox tools. But what about the current development and early access plans for Hytale? So let's get into it. Now, after being shut down under Riot, Hytale has been saved and is now fully owned again by Hypixel and the team. The founders have repurchased Hytale from Riot Games, of course, and now own 100% of the game and IP, not just a fraction of it. So they have personally committed to funding Hytale for at least, they say, the next 10 years, with no outside investors or publishers, so they can retain creative control. Now, the previous cross-platform C++ engine has been abandoned, and the team is returning to the older legacy engine, the one used for the original trailer and most early blog posts. Now, early access will run on this legacy engine because it is already playable and allows the team to focus on game content rather than engine tech, which is actually pretty smart here. Early access is planned for Windows PC first, with Linux and Mac attempted later, and any other platforms coming much later, so just note that. Now, the team explicitly warns that early access will be rough, buggy, and unbalanced, with frequent updates that may break things or affect saves, so just be aware of what you're getting involved with. Early access is expected to last at least a few years before a formal 1.0 release. There is intentionally no rush to hit 1.0. They really want the community's feedback to be heavily involved with the development of this game. Now, the early access launch content will focus on exploration mode, creative mode, and modding, not the full story or mini-game suite just yet. And about adventure mode, by the way, it will not be fully available at early access launch and is planned to be developed more heavily once core systems are stable. Now, official Hypixel style minigames will also not be present at early access launch. They have a dedicated team that will work on them after the core game is nice and stable. And more than 30 former Hytale developers, by the way, have already been rehired for this new phase, with more expected to return. So that is excellent news right there. And the devs are positioning early access as a collaboration, once again, with the community, explicitly asking players to help by playing, reporting bugs, and creating content. But yeah, we have got to talk about the world, zones, and biomes and dive into this, so let's do it. Orbis is divided into multiple procedurally generated zones, each with its own geology, climate, biomes, creatures, and NPC factions. Now, Zone 1, which is often called Emerald Grove, has lush forests, lakes, rolling hills, and ravines, your classic green starting territory. What about Zone 2? That's going to be known as the Howling Sands. It's going to be a dry desert-themed zone with dunes, sand-built temples, and very limited fresh water. Zone 3 is a colder region featuring boreal forests, mountains, snow, and icy caves. And we also have Zone 4, which sometimes is known as Devastated Lands, is a harsher, more corrupted environment and lore-heavy and more dangerous as well. Each zone has its own block sets, decorative items, plants, and environmental props, giving a distinct feel to builds in that area. Now, under the surface, by the way, zones have procedurally generated cave systems that differ from zone to zone with unique layouts and resources. Hytale also features handcrafted dungeons made from pre-built rooms, which are known as prefabs, of course, stitched together, often ending in a special final room with unique rewards. There are also coastal areas and deep ocean regions with underwater exploration and extra dangers for players who venture into the depths. And the team uses a mix of curated design and selective randomness so that Orbis can have a crafted story feel but vary between worlds. Now also, what about those creatures, NPCs, and factions? So let's dive into those details. So Hytale features over 100 NPCs and creatures already in the current build. Not too shabby, though many are still being fine-tuned and configured. Now, there are also peaceful animals that you can run into, like deer, birds, and goats, as well as hostile monsters, each tuned to the zone and biome they inhabit. Now, one of the signature-friendly races is known as the Quebecs, small plant-like people who live in forests. And lore-wise, Quebecs eventually plant themselves and become trees when they grow old, turning into Quebec tree singers if they resist that urge and remain wise elders. Now, Hytale also includes hostile tribal enemies like Trorks, goblin-like creatures with their own camps, behaviors, and social interactions. NPC behaviors are driven by a behavior scripting system, letting developers and eventually modders, by the way, script how creatures react to the player and to each other. And the world contains boss-style enemies in certain dungeons or special locations designed as tougher combat encounters with unique mechanics. And many NPCs and creatures also have their unique sound design, which is really important. More on that and the atmosphere in a little bit, by the way. And some NPCs and creatures are zone exclusive, reinforcing the idea that each zone has its own unique ecosystem. And the devs treat NPC factions like, of course, the Quebecs and others as lore-rich societies with their own histories and customs, not just simple mods. Now, let's get into a little bit about the player progression system. So your character model is a customizable avatar that appears consistently across adventure, creative, and online hub and minigames. Character customization includes different body parts, outfits, hairstyles, and cosmetics, with ongoing improvements shown in older dev posts, and they plan to, of course, evolve this over time as well. Hytale features RPG-style progression with gear, weapons, and stats, improving as you explore, craft, and loot. Weapons and armor can exist in different rarities, common, rare, epic, legendary, you know the drill, providing increasing power and sometimes unique effects. The design emphasis is that different weapons feel like different playstyles rather than just stat sticks. There will be, of course, an objective quest system that can provide tasks and goals to players in adventure mode. And the game supports single player and co-op play in adventure mode, by the way, letting you explore Orbis alone or with friends. And the Capital Hub, which was described in past updates, is envisioned as a shared social city where avatars can gather, show off achievements, and access minigames. And yes, of course, I know a lot of you guys are curious about the combat systems in Hytale and how that has evolved over time, so let's dive into this. So Hytale's combat has gone through a complete rebuild to become more expressive and skill-based. The team's recent design direction is weapon-centric combat. Every weapon type has its own moveset, abilities, and timing. Swords and maces were used in dev posts as examples of slower, heavier weapons with more deliberate swing timings, and daggers enable a fast, evasive playstyle focused on mobility and quick hits. Combat includes blocking with shields or weapons, letting you reduce or negate incoming damage. And there are ranged weapons like bows and other ranged tools, plus magical weapons such as spellbooks and staffs. And weapons often include active abilities, suggesting that combat will involve ability management and cooldowns rather than just basic attacks. And enemy AI uses an internal system often referred to in dev posts as kind of like combat action evaluator to choose targets, attacks, and behaviors in smarter ways. Combat encounters can be found both in the open world, roving mobs, camps, and in structured dungeons. Dev footage has also showcased dodging, jumping, and movement-focused combat, not just standing in place and trading hits, which is nice. And what about the building, the block system, and creative play? Let's talk about it. So Hytale lets you build block by block, stacking and removing cubic blocks to create structures just like classic voxel sandboxes. The building system supports angled roof blocks and slope pieces, allowing more detailed and varied architecture than pure cubes. Blocks come in multiple variants and textures, including different materials, decorations, and structural shapes. There are prefabs, pre-designed structures, or chunks that can be placed in the world gen and used by creators for faster building. In creative play, players can spin up custom procedurally generated worlds purely for building and experimenting, and players will be able to install visual mods and alternate block prefab styles to change how the world looks, which is really cool. The devs imagine a creator's journey where players start with simple block building and gradually move into advanced tools, scripting, and asset creation. Building isn't limited to structures. You can build landscapes, contraptions, and set pieces that can be used in adventure maps or mini games. But yeah, mentioning mini games, let's talk about those. So Hytale aims to have an online hub and mini games experience inspired by long-running high-pixel Minecraft server. The vision described by the devs is a central hub space where players meet, show off cosmetics, and jump into various mini games. Classic high-pixel game types like Sky Wars, Bed Wars, Build Battle, The Walls, Paintball, and Duels have been listed as minigames planned for Hytale's ecosystem. Official minigames will arrive after the core sandbox and adventure experience are stable, not in the first early access build. Community servers will be able to host their own minigames using Hytale's server tools and modding capabilities. And yeah, we got to talk about adventure mode and the narrative direction of this game. So adventure mode is described as a sandbox RPG campaign on Orbis, where players uncover the planet's secrets and try to change its fate. Unlike purely random worlds, Orbis in adventure mode is a curated experience with handcrafted story beats and challenges combined with procedural variations. Now, players will spawn in one of the early zones like Emerald Grove, Howling Sands, or Borea, and progress into more dangerous areas over time. Now, the devs want adventure mode to feel like a meaningful narrative journey, but still allow the freedom of building bases, exploring, and playing co-op. I gotta admit, I am extremely curious to see what happens with adventure mode. Yeah, so modding tools and creative first design is part of all of this. So Hytale was built from the start with modding as a central pillar, not an afterthought. Early access will ship with modding enabled at launch, letting players run servers and create custom content immediately. The devs intend for it to be possible to mod almost everything, including content in mini server-side systems. Hytale provides an official model editing and asset creation tool, often called Hytale Model Maker, used both by devs and community creators, and the game supports custom models, animation, textures, and sounds, allowing total overhauls or brand new game mode. Scripting support is planned so creators can script custom gameplay logic, AI behaviors, and even systems. The team plans to release server source code access within a few months of early access, subject to legal, of course, and security checks. Dedicated servers will be supported so communities can host their own persistent worlds, and the devs are explicitly aiming for backward compatibility in modding where possible, so updates don't constantly break community content, so they're planning ahead for that. They also emphasize that non-developers should be able to create impressive content with just a few guides or videos, making the tools very approachable to everyone. But you know what? The technology and engine have actually evolved over time. Let's talk about it. So Hytale currently uses the legacy engine, a C Java PC-focused engine used to build the content shown in the original trailer and most historic blog posts. A separate, newer cross-platform C++ engine had been under development for years, but is now shelved because it lagged behind in gameplay and would have delayed early access by about 2 years. And earlier dev posts detailed adoption of what they call an entity component system, also known as ECS, in the newer engine to make gameplay systems more modular and scalable, which is cool. Hytale's engine supports dynamic lighting and real-time shadows, with devs previously showing off day and night cycles and improved shadow rendering. The game features improved water rendering, by the way, bloom and particle effects, which were highlighted in a graphics update post. The team also has experimented with atmospheric audio systems. The world features ambient sounds that change with biomes, weather, and time of day. Launchpads, a specific gameplay feature, were used in a technical explainer to showcase the collaborative design between engineering and gameplay, showing how one feature is built across disciplines. But what about that music, atmosphere, and presentation? So that's extremely important to a game like this. Hytale has an original orchestral soundtrack with multiple tracks already released publicly, like Night on the Dunes or Traveling Band. You may have heard them. Now, each zone on Orbis has its own musical palette, so music helps establish once again the feel of a new biome that you may enter or a creepy dungeon that you're exploring. Some specific locations and point of interest have their own unique music themes, further giving impact to regions and events. And it's very clear the dev team are very aware how important sound is to this game, as they have also offered up very detailed behind the scenes looks at the sound effect creation. So they are not playing around with sound effects. But yeah, what about the long-term vision for this game? So Hytale's official blog has been running since 2018, offering development updates, tech explainers, art showcases, and music previews. And then, of course, there was that period where they were bought out by Riot Games, and now they're back. So they are committed to transparent communication going forward, with frequent patch notes and dev updates planned during early access. The community is centered on Discord, with, of course, channels planned for modding, bug reports, feedback, and tutorials and events. So they really do want to take care of their community in the long term. And Hytale's developers explicitly say that modding is critical to survival, framing community creations as the backbone of the game's longevity. The new leadership's philosophy is summarized as no risk, no Hytale. They're willing to launch an unfinished but playable game and build it with the community rather than wait for a perfectly polished 1.0. It is risky, but hey, it's going to have that early access tag. And I think that they are excited to work with the community side by side to turn this into something special in the next few years until we get to that 1.0 full launch release. So there it is, 101 things that you need to know about regarding Hytale. I am extremely excited about this one, especially after the new gameplay dropped. Knowing that this game has been saved just gets me super excited for the future. But stay tuned here for more Hytale and open world gaming goodness. I have you guys covered, and I will see you all next time. Take care.